Hi, can everyone hear me okay? Hi, everybody. We're just going to go live in a few minutes. I can see that there's comments coming through. So I can see, hi, Stephen. Hi, Saskia. Hi, Dennis. Yep, everyone can hear me okay. That's great. All right, I'll give everyone a few minutes. Hi, everybody. We're just going to go live in a few minutes. I can see that there's comments coming through. I'm getting feedback, Ian. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Saskia. Hi, Dennis. That's probably better. Great. Excellent. All right. Looks like we've got quite a few people joining us, so we might kick things off. Sounds great. So welcome members and guests to our first Travel Massive Live. I'm Sally Scott, chapter leader for Brisbane and the Gold Coast and founder of luxury travel website, aluxia.com. For those joining us for the first time, Travel Massive is a global community of almost 60,000 members in 169 chapters, made up of content creators, startups, hoteliers, business owners, connecting and supporting each other by coming together locally. While we can't come together in real life right now, I'm so pleased to be joining you virtually today to discuss the changing face of tourism in Queensland. We're also joined today by Travel Massive founder Ian Cumming, who'll be helping me moderate the session behind the scenes. So thank you, Ian. A little housekeeping before we start. Hearing you loud and clear. Thank you, Richard. We're streaming this presentation via Facebook, YouTube, the Travel Massive event website. So wherever you're watching, thank you for tuning in. And if you have any questions today, if you can pop them on the Travel Massive Facebook group, that's where I'm seeing these messages come through. And we're going to do a Q&A with Leanne Coddington first up. And then we'll be joined by our other speakers toward the end. So on Friday, Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk released Queensland's roadmap for easing COVID-19 restrictions. And the roadmap outlines a staged approach to giving Queenslanders more freedom to travel, participate in more activities and hold more gatherings. Sorry, to make sense of these easing restrictions and what the roadmap to recovery might look like, I'll be inviting our speakers on stage to discuss that today. I'm just waiting for Leanne to join us, so we'll get underway shortly. Has everyone been thinking about their questions? I'd love to see them start popping up now. So we'll be joined by Leanne Coddington, the CEO of Tourism Events Queensland, shortly. So I'd love to see some questions starting to flow through. Don't be shy. David Kalin, surely you're out there and have one for me. Sorry for the dull space. Oh, Leanne's backstage already. Oh, I didn't see her. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'll get started. So we do have our guest speaker in the backstage area. Leanne Coddington has dedicated her career to the tourism and hospitality industry, including more than 20 years in senior roles in Tourism and Events Queensland. She currently holds one of the industry's most senior and high-profile jobs, CEO of Tourism and Events Queensland, where she leads the state's tourism marketing, experience development and major events agency, to achieve its vision of inspiring the world to experience the best address on Earth. So welcome, Leanne. I'm sorry I didn't
Hi,
see you
Sally.
back there.
I'm here typing furiously going, hello.
You know, tech things. I've got that all out of the way first. So welcome, and I'll go backstage and leave you to it.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you so much, Sally, and hello to everyone. It's great to be with Travel Massive today. A different group of people, I suppose, to who I normally get to talk to. So I really look forward to having a little bit of Q&A and answering any questions I can. Welcome to my home. It's really weird to be sitting here in my lounge room talking to you, but there's some positives and some negatives to that, I suppose. I think we are, as we start to move through this, yes, starting to long for that interaction in the workplace a little bit more. Hi, Stephen Nutt. Long time no see. So anyway, so just thought, thank you to Sally for the invitation for joining you today. Just share a little bit of our space, I suppose, with you, and a little bit of what's going on. First of all, just to reflect on how the industry has been impacted. I know you all know it's been impacted and you've all been impacted personally, but at that macro level for us, and this, it's really important, I suppose, so that our key supporters at the state government and the federal government understand the impact to us. And Queensland particularly was impacted by COVID-19 before other states in Australia. They were still struggling. Many of the other states, unfortunately, still struggling with the impacts of the bushfires. We'd had the bushfires early. We were over the bushfires. We'd headed into 2020, all of us, I think, hoping that 2020 was going to be this fresh, bright start. And wow, bang, off we got hit. And from early February, particularly when China closed during Chinese New Year, that had a huge impact in the north and the south of our state. So we've been on this journey with you for right from the very beginning. Impact between $6.5 and $9.4 billion impact to the industry in Queensland. We have had a decrease of over $6 million inbound seats. Over 110 events have been cancelled or postponed just within the portfolio that we support. And we know that there's over 70,000 jobs that have been affected across the state. So a huge impact at the macro level. So, but what's TEQ doing? We've really focused in on 6 pillars of work, and I'll just spend a couple of minutes just talking about that before I just talk a little bit about what we see as being the impacts to the environment that we work in for the future. So first of all, just looking at these pillars, consumer demand obviously is a central pillar of the work that we're doing. And I think we'd all agree that our focus has to turn to being around intrastate travel. The roadmap has been fantastic that was released on Friday. That gives us a little bit more opportunity for people to travel just locally up to 150 Ks from this weekend. And then in 4 weeks' time, they can go the 250K and stay overnight, which is fantastic. So we're working on our activity that'll be launched shortly just on how we encourage Queenslanders to get out and explore this great state. And hopefully, we know within, well, a month after that, hopefully, if everything goes well, we'll be able to explore even further in the state. Obviously, then we turn to interstate travellers and that opportunity to get people to come from other states, particularly New South Wales and Victoria are always our biggest markets, but maybe there's opportunities elsewhere. If people who traditionally go from the western part of this country to Bali and they can't do that, maybe that alternative tropical holiday in Queensland will be appealing to them. And I just go back a step, just on interstate travel, we know that it's not as easy as it sounds to ensure that people get out and travel, that we're going to have to work hard and do a lot of heavy lifting collectively to ensure that we entice people to get out and enjoy this great state that we live in. So yeah, so looking interstate, looking at New South Wales, Victoria, but also having a look at WA and South Australia and see what the opportunity is there. And then this whole Trans-Tasman bubble hopefully will emerge before the end of the year, and we'll be able to welcome New Zealanders back to Queensland. We know this is a favourite destination for them. We have lots of Kiwis that come here to visit friends and relatives, but also to have a holiday. They know Queensland nearly as well as we know Queensland ourselves. So we do look forward to that opportunity. And then as the international markets reopen, which is the long haul, all indications are that that won't be until around this time next year. So we're going to take the opportunity in the meantime to really make sure that we're honed for the markets and look at any other opportunities. Are there opportunities in other markets that we haven't gone into traditionally that might offer a really good opportunity for Queensland? The sentiment in those markets at the moment is showing us that across the 12 to 13 markets that we connect with, over 50% of international travellers aren't currently thinking of their next holiday yet. Travellers are nervous about long haul travel, and their appetite for it is 1 to 2 years away. So we have a challenge ahead of us in our international markets, but we do know on the positive that we are an attractive destination for international travellers. 75% do want to visit, not right now, and 52% said Australia is at the top of their to-do list. So we're well positioned. We just going to have to work really hard. Australia's borders may be some of the last to open internationally, and then therefore other markets will be talking to each other before we're able to actually offer that opportunity to travel. So many challenges ahead of us there, but also great opportunity. We're well positioned. We are seen to be a safe destination. I know you're all working on COVID safe plans to open your business, and QTIC, the Tourism Industry Council, are leading some great work on the principles behind those. So we will be in a good position to welcome those people. Our events portfolio, as I said earlier, has had a big hit for 110 events cancelled or postponed to date. And we are turning to those local and community events as those first that are going to be there for people in the community to enjoy and to get people out and interacting. We love events. They add colour and movement to what the destinations have to offer across the state. And it certainly will remain a really central part of our destination offering. It just, again, because of mass gatherings and the restrictions around that, may take a little bit longer to come back into play. But a strong calendar in the future is really important. And in the meantime, when there is the opportunity to have virtual events in place of those that we can actually be there live, we'll take that opportunity as well. Some work that we have been doing for quite a while is on experience design, and what does brand Queensland look like in the future? What do the experiences of Queensland look like in the future? And for any of you that were at Destination Q last year, you would have heard Michael Branner, our head of marketing, talk about the future of brand Queensland and how people are looking for that deep connection to the place that they visit, but also that ability to take something away for themselves. And we call that travel for good. That's not a tagline. That's just the essence behind what we think the Queensland brand is. And fortunately for us, we think that really fits in well with what people are going to be looking for post-COVID. So we're continuing to do the work on our brand going forward for a later time. Once we've opened our borders and we've got people travelling in our marketing activity, we will be targeting everybody who is able to travel. The segmentation won't be so important in those initial first while. We just need people to come and experience Queensland to help our operators get back on their feet. But down the track, we will be looking at this. What is brand Queensland? How do we bring that essence and the flavour of what that is to life? And experiences are really key for that. So we are in the process of finalising the work around an experience design toolkit that our industry will be able to use to help you ensure that you have the absolute best experience you can possibly take to the world once our borders are open. And also we're now changing that a little to ensure that the health and safety requirements of a post-COVID environment are also incorporated into that. Aviation, as we know, is absolutely central, and we're meeting with airports and our regional tourism organisations to look at what that future looks like. The aviation industry has stopped looking at the graph of that it's basically 99% down. It's next to nothing left at the moment, as we all know, and that will take a while to rebuild. But we're talking to our domestic carriers, and we'll be starting conversations with the international carriers in partnership with Tourism Australia. The Team Australia approach going back into our international markets is going to be really, really important. Research is key. Everything that we're doing, we're underpinning with research. We're working very quickly on ensuring that we have the latest consumer sentiment, both at an international and domestic level. What are Australians thinking? What are Queenslanders thinking? What are the overseas markets thinking? So that we are making the right decisions for the future. And finally, the last piece is just ensuring that we're set up to be communicating with our industry as effectively as we can be. And I'm just going to give a free plug. On Friday, we also have a webinar. If you want to join in, we're hosting a webinar where Minister Kate Jones, the Chief Health Officer Jeanette Young, and Daniel Geschwind, the CEO of QTIC, is joining us as well at 2:00 on Friday to have a conversation about all of these sort of things that I've been talking to you about, and we'll also give a little more information on our marketing and events activity, but you're probably getting a sneak peek here right now. So, but if you can join us, that'd be wonderful. So how do we see the world changing? I'm going to start right close to home to everyone, and I talk a little bit about social license and social sentiment in the community. That has to be in place first. Before we can think about anything else, we need to ensure that our communities are going to be ready to welcome visitors. We know how crucial it is to have a warm, welcoming community for a visitor. They get so much more out of the experiences when they can see that the locals are embracing the experience, but also embracing the visitors. So some of our regions in Queensland have been more hard hit by that sentiment than others, and are worried about COVID coming into their communities. So, and what we also know through various pieces of research is that reassurance has to come from the chief medical officers. In partnership with our government and our industry. So we're working very hard across those three streams to ensure that we can reassure communities when people are able to travel, that it is in a safe environment. And from your perspective, from an industry's perspective, it's about you then making sure that you do have your COVID safe plans in place. And there's more information coming on that. As I said, QTIC's leading that work to help support you in the development of those plans. We know that some businesses have exited the market. Others aren't going to open until the volumes return. It's easy to say, and we've seen all the media, impossible for a restaurant to open if they can only have 10 customers. The Chief Health Officer explains very well why she's had to do that, or recommend that to the government. But there's a plan in place. We'll see that increase. And she's also made it clear, if you have a COVID safe plan in place that shows that you can have more than the numbers when it gets to 20, if you can have more than 20, and the plan shows that that can be effectively implemented, then they will consider that. So there are, that option's there, the growth is there, but the triggers are very much that we have to behave ourselves as Queenslanders. We have to do the right thing. We need to ensure that we are doing the social distancing. But the international borders opening will also clearly depend on how well our interstate colleagues are able to flatten the curve for COVID as well. Therefore, I spoke earlier that the international markets are going to take a little while to open, and a lot of our businesses, I'm sure, who are here today, focus on the international market. So we need to help you pivot. If you're an operator, if you have an internationally designed product, how do we help you move towards that being right for the domestic clientele? If you're a travel agent selling outbound, how do you have access to understanding the Queensland marketplace so that you can sell Queensland and Australia? So those things need to be focused on. Every business needs to think, as I said, about COVID safe and social distancing and what that means to your model, what it means to your yield profile. All of those things come into play. Aviation capacity, particularly for regional Queensland, is so important. We're a big state, we're regionally diverse, we have fantastic product right in the north of the state as well as in the south of the state. So how do we help people get around? We're working with the airlines as best we can, but we do know they need demand as well. They need the borders open for them, and social distancing measures well controlled so that they can operate efficiently. So we are looking at those outbound, or working with those outbound focused travel agents and providers, ITOs, to see how we can work with their client bases to entice them to an Australian holiday and a Queensland holiday. We know that's not easy though. Nearly 10 million trips are taken outbound every year. But our research is telling us that that's not as easily converted as you would think. Some of those people are going to wait it out and wait until they can take their next international holiday. Others may choose to take their next trip to Harvey Norman rather than to Queensland or somewhere else in Australia. So we're going to have to really tug at their heartstrings. We're going to have to put a fabulous offering on the table that shows them that a holiday at home, a holiday here in Queensland, they can have an experience that people travel all the way around the world for, and maybe it's time for them just to spend a little time in their backyard. We know that the industry is hurting. We know that there is no cash floating around. So marketing funds is something that is really hard to come by. We're in a fortunate position that our budget is in place at this stage. And so we know we need to do the heavy lifting. So we will be working in that frame that we'll do the heavy lifting. There'll be opportunities for industry to come on board with the activity that we're doing. And we've got a new program in place that you'll hear more about in the coming weeks, where we have implemented a program called iMate, our industry media agency for tourism and events. And so they're in place to be able to work with our regional tourism organisations and our industry to connect into the marketing activity that we're doing. And just finally, before I hand back to Sally, what we also know, for those of you who may be focused on non-Australian product in the travel industry, that Tourism Australia will be allowing domestic travel agents to access our Aussie Specialist program, and that's providing training and tools to sell Australia. So it's designed traditionally for our international travel agents, but it will be opened up in the near future for Australian-based agents as well. So I hope that was a little bit of insight and informative as to the work that's going on at Tourism and Events Queensland. But Sally, I'm happy to take any questions that may be coming from the floor or listen to some of the other speakers. I've been able to wriggle some more time so I can stay on for a little bit longer and listen to the others and join in later on as well if you want.
Wonderful. Thanks, Leanne. We've got a few questions that are coming through via Facebook. So let's start. We've got one here from David Kalin. We're going to have an amount of time where domestic travel will be our only option. However, it's possible that domestic air travel will be more expensive than when we're used to. Plus, there might be challenges about people having access to annual leave. How confident are you that there's going to be a desire to travel? Are you forecasting more drive holidays? I mean, you've covered some of that.
Definitely. Yeah, no, all the right questions and all the things that are keeping us awake at night. Definitely drive will be the first opportunity. As I said, I think 250K travel through to at least the middle of July. So that's not a flight. So you're definitely looking at drive holidays and encouraging people to, once they can go beyond that 250K, to explore far and wide. We are talking to the airlines. Qantas did put out a media release, and there was some commentary in the news a couple of weeks ago with some really cheap, attractive fares being mentioned. So fingers crossed that there are some really attractive fares to get people flying again. But we know that that is a big barrier, and we were seeing that last year, definitely into Queensland and particularly to the north of the state. It's a really complex, tricky problem for all of us. So we'll continue to work really hard with the carriers on that. We know just before we were going into lockdown, when people could still travel domestically, we did what we call reverse co-op, and that's where the airlines didn't have the capacity to be doing any more marketing. They were already chock-a-block. And we just said to them, if you can give us a sharp airfare, we'll add that into our marketing activity and put that out to market through our platforms. And we were having huge success on that. So we were seeing year-on-year growth of domestic people on those domestic carriers going into the north of the state, into Cairns. So that's hopefully we can reignite that as soon as those flights and fares are available again.
We've got this one here from Dennis about concerns over the current situation with Virgin and access to and from Queensland. So sort of another airline one, if you want to.
Nice, tricky one, Dennis. I'll stick away from the Virgin comment, but I will say, what we've seen over the years since the early 2000s is that we need a strong duopoly of carriers in the state, so in the country, so that there is that competition, that we do see airfares that are affordable for Australians to holiday at home. I hear it all the time. Why is it cheaper to get a flight to Bali than it is to get a flight to Cairns? That's all about how the airlines manage their yields and their market share. But we'll be working really hard with both of them to ensure that we have as competitive a situation as we possibly can and get the sharpest fares we can.
Moving on kind of to events, we've got a question here from Susan from Absolute Events saying, obviously we really feel for the events industry, and the roadmap released on Friday gives our industry some hope. With many business events needing to involve more than 100 people, we're keen to know if you have been given a sense of when that number might be increased.
No, I haven't. I just have to cut to the chase on that one. It's on the tip of our tongue, not just for business events, but for all events. Obviously, we've got the 100 road mark there now, but we are doing our best to try and get a feel for what that longer term prospect is. Even some certainty is better than no certainty, I suppose, in our minds. So we're just going to see if there is a possibility that we can get some markers for mass gatherings, and it'll depend on, I would imagine, it's complex. Whereabouts in the state is it? If it's a golf event in the outback, that may be much more manageable than 50,000 people at Suncorp Stadium. So all these complexities, and then your business events come in many sizes as well. So what I do know from listening to the Chief Health Officer is that it all comes back to not only what's on the roadmap, and I keep on looking at it because it sits right next to my computer, but also your COVID safe plan. So event organisers should be thinking now about how, if I'm going to run my event, how do I make it safe? How do I ensure that I minimise that social interaction, that I can maximize social distancing in every aspect of my event? So that's where people need to be thinking, because even if the vaccine comes and things get back towards the new normal, we don't think anything's ever going to be back to where it was before, but into the new normal. I think this desire by the community to have a little bit of distance and this social distancing comfort is still going to be there. So you're going to have to think about it anyway.
And we've got this question just on events as well of, do you think it'll be influenced by video conferencing in the future?
I think to a degree it will be. I think certainly business travel, I think, rather than maybe events, but business travel certainly. I think we'll still travel because I think we love the social interaction. There's nothing better than a face-to-face meeting, but I think we'll be able to balance that with some of this sort of stuff. Code, which was our innovation conference, turned to virtual. It was one of the first events impacted by the lockdown, and it turned virtual, which was great. But I still do think people like face-to-face interaction. So I think there's a space for some, but not for everything. So I think it'll be a mix. Yeah. I mean, we were seeing some of it. We were seeing conferences where people would be video conferenced in. Maybe there's a way for the audience to be conferenced in as well. I do personally think, though, I know just from experience, if we're all on video conference, it's fantastic. Or if we're all in the room, it's fantastic. When you start to mix it, it becomes a bit tricky. Yeah.
I think we've got time for one more question. I like this one from Melissa. She says, "Hi Leanne, thanks for speaking with us today. I'm a full-time family travel blogger who lives in Brisbane, as well as having a large Australian audience. Do you see a place for professional travel bloggers in helping to promote and encourage travel in Queensland? And if so, how best can we start to get involved?" We do have a lot of content creators on the webinar today, I think.
I wasn't prepared for that one, but I need to take that away to my content team because I don't want to overload Michelle Blacanto with hundreds of you contacting her about how do you get your blog content out. But I certainly will. I will take that up with the team, and I'll come back through Sally with some focus on that. But good quality content for people, particularly now, like this next period. So from this weekend, when you can go 150 kilometres, what are all those ideas that you can get out through your blog, through the people that your audience, sorry. So through your audience, how do you give them ideas and inspiration to get out and travel? And if you live on the Gold Coast, it's as simple as give me the tips and tricks of what I could be doing on the Gold Coast. What are those hidden secrets that I haven't ever had time to go and do, and now I can do? Or the same for Brisbaneites and people on the Sunshine Coast if you're in Southeast Queensland. But how do you, I think we could just get to Toowoomba at 150k. Maybe I'm in trouble for saying that. Maybe you got to wait another month. But the beautiful scenic rim and the Hamptons, and the beautiful food and wine experiences that we've got out there. Fantastic time for people to get out and explore our local hood. Yeah.
I guess with those restrictions, with this question, how can we support tourism in North Queensland if we're in the southeast? So I guess we can't travel there.
Well, my husband and I actually were talking last night that, we're going to plan to hop in the car. We're going to drive, take some time together because this has been crazy. We're a fortunate family where we've all been fully engaged. So whilst we're working in this virtual space, well, he's not, he's working on premise, but we're all just working crazy. So we need to, given that we've been looked after through this time, we need to give back. So we'll be road tripping up the coast. So it takes some time. It's a beautiful trip, either up the coast or outback Queensland. Encourage people to hop in your car if the planes aren't flying. If the planes are flying, great. Hop on that plane, hire a car at the other end, fly drive. Enjoy.
Yeah, wonderful. I think that's
you think about it, we have people, you heard the stats before, Australia is one of the most desirable destinations in the world. People fly all the way around the world. 24 hours they'll spend in that capsule in the sky to get here. It's in our backyard. Whew, we should be relishing it.
Yeah, that's a lovely positive place to end, I think, this today. Thank you so much for joining us, Leanne.
Yep.
If you can stick around, that'd be lovely.
Yeah, I'll stick around I'll sit in the back room.
In the backstage, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I think that was a lovely positive message, and nice to hear that TQ are going to do the heavy lifting and opportunities for industry, which I think is really exciting. And look, for some people watching today that may have been stood down or are looking for new opportunities in the industry, our next speakers you might find really interesting as well. So next up, we've got Edward Hewitt. He heads up the TMS Talent New South Wales and Queensland team as State Manager, with 5 years of service at TMS Talent and 6 years prior experience working in leisure travel. Ed has expert industry knowledge across Australian travel, events, hospitality markets. So I'm just going to bring to the stage Ed. Thanks, Ed.
Hi.
Hear me okay? All right. I'll see you.
Yeah, all good. Hi, good morning, everybody. And thanks to Travel Massive, Sally and Ian, for inviting me on today. As Sally said, my name is Ed, and I head up TMS Talent for Queensland and New South Wales, and we recruit for the travel, hospitality and event sectors. So today I just wanted to give a brief insight into the current job market as it stands, and some tips for job seekers as well who may be in that market. So first and foremost, the job market. Well, it's extremely competitive. The job board Seek released some really good data, which I should say is accurate from up to the 4th of May, that 80% of Australian workers have been impacted in some way or another by COVID-19. So that's where they've been stood down, hours reduced, pay cut, or indeed redundancy. So whilst we saw job ads fall, pleased to say they've actually been going up again in the last week, which is certainly positive. Applicants have shot up. So perhaps relevant to perhaps any travel agents looking for work and watching today, call centre applications from the same data actually multiplied by 6 times the average amount to people usually applying. So call centre is a very popular role in these times. It doesn't often require years of experience or formal qualifications as such, but it can be done from home in most cases, and it can start quickly, which is obviously very important. So sometimes a call centre, might be looked at as a quick fix, but at the moment in the job market, what's interesting is one of the most competitive and sought after roles. So if we talk about the different camps that a job seeker might be in at the moment. I mean, if you are a job seeker, you probably fall into one of three camps at the moment. So number one is the extreme situation. You need a job now. You don't necessarily care what it is. You need to pay your rent, you need to support your family. Category two, perhaps you're simmering, you're a bit on autopilot. You might have been stood down, you're on JobKeeper or Job Seeker, but you're certainly still job hunting for that next more secure move. And number three is you're secure, but you're open to opportunity. You might still be employed, you're still earning, but you've got a lot of questions. Is my industry secure? But is this an opportunity for me to learn, for me to grow and use that situation for that? So look, number one may not empathize with number three in quite the same way, but you're competing with each other all the same. And that urgency of your circumstances doesn't necessarily dictate the decision from employers. So looking specifically at travel and tourism, well, I guess firstly, are people being hired in travel and tourism? And yes, they are. And that's looking through April and early May. We know this from our own placements at TMS, but speaking within our networks and of course on LinkedIn, you see when somebody gets a new job. Will travel return? Yes, I think it's been well documented it will. It's just a matter of when. Certainly optimistic that the pivoting to domestic travel will create roles. Interestingly, somebody that had to postpone their wedding in the UK this year to next year, it did get me thinking, well, how many people are now going to move their weddings if they were abroad here back to Australia and to Queensland? And, you know, speaking then to wedding venues, places like that, they're expecting a busy summer. You know, those venues, hospitality providers, you know, they're going to need staff. So there's certainly stuff that's looking positive in terms of getting jobs. Where did we see hires? Mainly in particular was marketing and accounting were two key areas. Companies, of course, need finances in order and organized now more than ever. But efficient social and digital marketing is crucial to pipeline for that future revenue, you know, everybody so needs. So interestingly, with those two professions, what do they have in common? Again, they can work from home, as little training if you're coming in experienced to a company, and the onboarding is not going to be as difficult for some other positions. And that's what we need to look at with the onboarding. I mean, interestingly, a company I spoke to, do a lot of work with just yesterday, they rely on a lot of temp and contractors for their business. And while their increase of intake has decreased by 25%, it's not actually because they don't have the work. There is the work there, but they can't actually onboard people in an efficient way. So as we start to see the restrictions being eased and more relaxed, you know, gradually, we're going to see those jobs go up as well, which is certainly a positive. So tips for job seekers, and I'm really talking to those people in that first and second camps, you know, at the moment. A really key tip for you, if you're a bit lost at the moment, is identify your strength. What are you best at? Employers need the absolute best right now, and with so much competition in the market, they can get the best. So where do you add value? Let me give you an example from something at the moment. I'm representing a product manager in travel industry. She's been in her role for 6 months, and unfortunately she's been stood down. So first things first, should she do product again? Absolutely. Is she passionate about products and loves products in travel? 100%. However, in her job search and being a category 1 urgently needs a job, she also has 10 years sales, reservations and team leading behind her, motivating teams, making sales, rostering, admin for a group of people, and whatever it may be. And so she identified, well, although she loves product, that is where her strength is. That is what she's done, and she needs a job. And as soon as we started focusing on that and looking where people needed these skills, she started to get some traction and some results. So it's really crucial to be doing that and where you can apply those skills. And those are what you should be applying for. Finally, I will say, partner with a recruiter. I did see a post on LinkedIn quite recently from an ex-recruiter that said no one's going to work with recruitment companies because they can't afford to pay the fees. But actually, on the same day, we made a placement with a company. Not only did we have a great candidate for the role, but the value we added was that we were able to present a shortlist of 3 very well qualified people to compare with the 600 applicants they'd received in 24 hours. Now, of course, we worked out a staggered payment plan for that company to help their business, but it meant we could keep going, the company could get the key hire they needed, and most importantly, somebody was able to get a job instead of just not hearing back when they're applying for multiple jobs. So, look, to sum up, I would say it's a very competitive market. So be smart where you're applying. Think about where these jobs are going to come back fastest, whether that's domestic or weddings, as we talked about. Identify your key strengths that you can utilize to stand out, and get advice from experts. In these webinars, it's completely free to do so. Look, I'll just finish by saying big shout out to, as an ex-travel agent, to all those travel agents on the front line at the moment doing those cancellations and refunds. You're absolute champions. It's amazing the work you're putting in. But look, Sally, thanks very much for having me on, and I hope that was helpful. Cheers.
I think that was really helpful. Put in the comments in Facebook if you thought that was helpful. Ed's going to stick around for some questions at the end as well. But that was great, Ed, and some great advice and good positivity in that as well. Thank you so much. So if you thought that they were some, sorry, I'm doing 2 things at once. It's very difficult. Some great expert tips there, and our next speaker, Annabel Sullivan, will be sharing more tips on what you need to do to sort out LinkedIn right now. If you don't know Annabel, she has more than 25 years experience within the tourism and business events industry. She began her career with Tourism and Events Queensland and has worked for renowned businesses including Qantas Australian Resorts, P&O Australian Resorts, Voyages and Brisbane Marketing. Annabel is co-founder of Strategic Social Profiles, established in 2015 to assist busy professionals and small business owners with their social media profiles and social media strategies. So welcome, Annabel.
Hi, Sally. Hi, everyone out there. I am going to share my screen because I've got a PowerPoint that I just want to talk through. So 1 second. Hang on.
How are you going, Annabel?
Yep, got it.
There we go.
Ooh. Hang on.
That's our screen.
1 second, sorry. Okay, that better?
That is better.
Okay,
right.
Excellent. I just want to add on a little bit about my background. So, Sally, thanks very much for that introduction. And yes, I have had a fairly long career, which has predominantly been in the tourism and business events industry. And so, like many of you out there, I have actually been through some pretty challenging times that have impacted the industry. So I am coming from a place of experience with the information that I'm sharing with you. I started Strategic Social Profiles about 4 years ago with my business partner because we had an interest in how social media can assist individuals and businesses to build and grow their professional brands and businesses. So the topic that I'm covering today is what you need to be sorting out on LinkedIn right now. So the reality is that at the moment, you're not really getting a chance to meet clients or meet new contacts in a face-to-face environment. So now is really the time that you want to take advantage of what's available to you online. So attending this seminar and webinar is obviously one example, but my recommendation is also that now more than ever, it's a great time to be more active on LinkedIn than you probably have been in the past. So in my quick 10 minutes, I'm going to share with you the reasons why you need to be on LinkedIn, what you need to be getting right now, some of the LinkedIn features that you should be taking advantage of and that you may not necessarily know, and then just a few key takeaway points and action points. So let's get started. So I'm sure many of you are aware that LinkedIn is the largest professional social media network in the world, and it is made up of like-minded individuals. So people from your industry, your customers, your bosses, contacts, people with similar roles to you, people that you've met throughout your career, and possibly people that you actually want to meet and potentially work with in the future. So there's more than 10 million users in Australia, and really you can't afford to not be on it. So it's likely that the people that you want to connect with are going to be on LinkedIn, and you really need to be where they are. It has become the business card of the 21st century, and it is often someone's first impression of you. So it is commonplace for people to search you on LinkedIn, either before they meet you, before they interview you, or even actually after they've met you, because they do want to connect with you and they do want to actually check in on who you are, what your experience is, and also potentially who your contacts are. So it also will help you grow and expand your network and deliver business growth and a professional reputation. So you can proactively increase your LinkedIn network and connect with people and the businesses that matter to you. And this is probably the most important thing right now. It is actually where recruiters are going to find candidates. So whether it's recruitment companies or employers, it's where they're going to source candidates. At the moment, research indicates that close to 80% of recruiters are using LinkedIn to search for candidates. So in the current environment, that fact alone is really reason enough for you to get on and be active on LinkedIn. And I think we can't underestimate the fact that it does help to brand you and your professional profile online. That's what LinkedIn is all about. So you do want to ensure that you get things right when you're actually on LinkedIn. So part of our business is to assist busy professionals to create best practice LinkedIn profiles. We find that it's often the last thing that people actually get to. They're too busy doing other things like their job, doing things for clients, or just doing everything else before they actually focus on doing something for themselves. So in our time of our business, we've actually completed hundreds of LinkedIn profiles for clients. So we've been able to identify what it is that people really struggle with, and also what people just don't get right when they're setting up their LinkedIn profiles. So that's what I'm going to share with you today, what you actually need to be getting right on LinkedIn. Because if you're there, you obviously want it to be right and you want it to be the best that it possibly can, because it is a reflection of you. If you get these things right, you can potentially stand out from your competitors, and it might just be the difference between you getting that job over somebody else. So these are the 5 things that you need to get right. You want to actually complete your contact details. So the contact information section, it allows you to include your email, your address, your phone number, a company address, and also relevant websites. You want to actually fill in that information because you want to make it easy for people to get in contact with you, especially if you are currently looking for a job. And this is also the section where you can actually custom your URL for LinkedIn. And that's a really useful thing to do. If you have set up your LinkedIn profile and you haven't gone in and tailored this section, you'll end up with a LinkedIn URL that will be a mix of your name and potentially a whole lot of random numbers. But it is possible to tailor it so it is actually your name. You can start to use that on your resume. You can start to use that on an email sign-off. And the beauty of that is that it just links directly to your LinkedIn profile. You do want to have a professional photo. As they say, a photo tells 1,000 words, and your LinkedIn profile photo really needs to reflect who you are and it really needs to be professional. So no selfies, no photos of you at the races, and no photos with other people in them. You want it just to be yourself. I did have someone connect with me a while ago, and they had their face painted as a cat. So it really isn't a professional look. The other tip about your photo is that you want it to be current. It's really important that it is a current photo of you and not something that was taken 10, 15, 20 years ago. Because if people have met you, they want to be able to know that they're connecting with the right person. So they're just some tips about getting your professional photo right. The summary. So this is your about section, and this is honestly one of the hardest areas that people have trouble with, because it's all about you. It is actually your professional career story, but it's more than the facts and figures. It's about your achievements, your motivations, your personal and your professional interests. It's your story. And this is really the area that people get asked to help them with the most, because it's often really hard to write about yourself. It is a really important section though, and it must be completed. Best practice is that you have about 2,000 characters to fill in, so that's about 300 words, and you want it to be complete, not just a few sentences about yourself. And best practice tip is that it should be written in the first person. So your headline. This is one of the most visible spots on LinkedIn. So if people actually look on your LinkedIn page, it's the first thing they see. And even if they put into Google your name, they can actually see some of your headline. So you want it to be more than what your role is. You want it to be, as Ed said, your strengths. What is it that you can actually bring to an organisation? What's going to set you apart from other candidates? I see it as your own personal tweet. You only have about 120 characters, so you really want to make the most of each of them. Think about, what are your areas of expertise? What do you do better than anybody else? And that's what you want to start putting in your headline. So the other area that gets a bit neglected are the skills area. On LinkedIn, you have the opportunity to put in about 50 different skills. That's a lot. So if you put in at least 5 to 10, that's a great place to start. The mistake that a lot of people make with skills is that they just put them in at the very beginning and then they just forget about it. So you want to make sure that the skills that you've got on your LinkedIn profile are actually current skills, and they do really reflect the career and the experience that you've got as you progress through your career. So you might want to start making sure that you've got leadership skills, or that you've got management skills, or that you've got strategic direction skills. Another tip is to look at the jobs that you want to go for and look at the skills that are part of that job ad. And you can start to include some of those words in your skills as well. But a tip, they do obviously need to reflect your capabilities. You can't just say you've got something if you don't. So if you get those 5 things right, you're definitely going to be in a position where you're standing out from your other competitors and other candidates. So it's really important to make sure you get at least those 5 things right. So how to make the most of LinkedIn, especially at the moment. And LinkedIn, because they recognise the audience that they have, and they recognise that the situation for many people has changed, they have actually enhanced some of their features and ramped up some opportunities at the moment. So not everybody knows that it is possible to let recruiters know that you're open to opportunities. So I mentioned before that about 80% of recruiters are finding candidates on LinkedIn. And I know from my hiring days and recruiting days that I would also go to LinkedIn to look for potential candidates. So it's possible to turn this feature on. You can let recruiters, and you can also let your network know that you're available for opportunities. And it lets you tailor what it is that you're interested in and the sorts of opportunities that you're interested in. It might be a job title, the job locations, and it also allows you to turn on whether you're interested in a full-time, part-time or casual work. So as I mentioned before, it's possible for recruiters to see it and also for your network. And if you're in a current role, you obviously might only you may not want to turn that feature on just yet. And once you get a job, you may actually turn it off as well. So at the moment, it's really important to spend some time connecting and growing your network. So I mentioned before that this is really one of the main reasons why people are on LinkedIn, because it does provide the right professional platform to be connecting with people that are going to be able to help you, or you're going to be able to help them. So now is really a time for you to actively grow your network. And as we've been saying, everybody has been impacted in some way. And so now there is a real sentiment that it's appropriate if you reach out to somebody that you believe might be able to support you, or alternatively, you might be able to reach out to someone who you can actually provide some sort of support to, because acts like that are the things that are going to make a difference. And again, it's a way for you to actually stand out. So it's worth taking the time to make some personalised connections through LinkedIn. And as I said, it's potentially a way for you to be able to stand out. It's also possible to actually connect with companies, industry information and insights. So again, at this point in time, if you're looking at potentially going into a new industry, you might be able to start to follow those industries or follow some publications that cover content and insights and trends about those industries. So it's a good way for you to actually get your head around potentially a new industry or new roles, or just some new experiences that align with where you're at within your career at this point in time. So this is actually another amazing thing that LinkedIn have done at the moment. They've always had this learning portal, but they've actually tailored some of their learning specifically toward finding a job during these changing and challenging times. So you can actually do some free courses on how to actually cope with being laid off if that's your situation, or about how to write a resume. There's also some digital networking strategies, including body language online. And there's also, which might become something that we'll all be doing in the future, video interview tips. So there's some useful things that are really relevant for all of you that are looking, or those of you that are looking for a job right at the moment. And I was speaking to an industry, senior industry person recently, and they were actually saying what they'll be looking for in the future is candidates who have used this time wisely. So they will be looking for people that can say over this period of time that they have tried to upskill or learn new skills. So they're not looking for people that have been just watching Netflix for months, but people who are really genuinely trying to improve and enhance their skills. So this next slide is just about some 3 key takeaway tips. So be current. And that just goes to my point about looking at your LinkedIn profile and making sure that it is up to date and current. It's got your current role, it's got your current experience, it's got your current strengths. So you really want to make sure that that is correct. You want your current contact details as well, because you want people to be able to find you. Get connected. Now is the time where you actually need to be proactively growing your network and connecting with people that, as I said, you may be able to help, or they may be able to help you. So I'd recommend by setting yourself a weekly goal of the people that you might actually want to reach out to, and also potentially companies that you're interested in as well. And be active. They say that on LinkedIn there are three types of users. There's the lurkers, the contributors, and the creators. And the majority of people are actually lurkers. So it won't take much for you to stand out. And all you need to do is to like posts, comment on posts, share posts that you actually really, that resonate or are relevant to you. You might actually want to start to create your own original content as well. But whatever you do, be active.
We need to start wrapping up soon, Annabel.
Okay.
So conscious of time.
My last slide is just, we, like many businesses, have also made some changes, and we've got some special job-ready LinkedIn offers if we can be of assistance to anyone. So thanks very much.
We might post that on the Facebook page as well. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Annabel. If you can stick around at the end, we might do some quick Q&A. So please write in the comments if you found Annabel's presentation really helpful as well. Thank you, Annabel. I think the we'll all be rushing out and fixing our LinkedIn profiles or speaking to Annabel. And just a reminder to really sharpen up your Travel Massive profile. They rank extremely highly for SEO, and you can also put a link through to LinkedIn from your Travel Massive profile. So absolutely don't forget those Travel Massive profiles. Our final presentation, and it will be really quick, was prepared by the lovely Angela Sweeney of Flight Centre. Unfortunately, Angela couldn't be with us this morning, but her colleague and Travel Massive chapter leader, Stephen Elvin, has stepped in. Stephen has spent the last 18 years lurking the halls of Flight Centre, which pretty much makes him part of the furniture. Having spent the better part of 10 years in learning and development, he has a passion for training and ongoing adult education. He's going to step us through a few options when it comes to upskilling COVID-19 style. Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks, Sally. Hi, everybody. Welcome to my lounge room. Very much COVID-style meetings these days. And as Sally had mentioned, Angela can't make it. So I'm going to step you through her presentation, and hopefully it all makes sense to everybody. And it's really about, I guess, addressing everything that all of the other presenters have already spoken about in terms of understanding skills gaps, what you can do to fill those in, upskill yourself, and work towards a different career or making your current one even better. But as many of us, I have found myself with quite a little bit of extra time on my hands. And so I decided that I needed to Marie Kondo my life, and very quickly realized that that wasn't the right thing for me. After cleaning and baking and getting rid of a lot of things, I realized I actually needed a job. And so that sort of set me on a different path as to then understanding what my transferable skills were after coming from 10 years of learning and development with Flight Centre, and trying to put that into a space where all I was being presented was things like call centre roles, which I'm not bagging by any means. It's just that was not my pathway at that time. And then all of a sudden there's the pressure of social media to do something fantastic and really make a change to your life. So what I needed to do essentially was reframe what I found important and started to look at those opportunities. And Angela put all of this information in front of me, which made me really think about how do I now go about making everything better for myself. And the first thing that I needed to do was really determine what my future looked like. And that was an opportunity to assess my skills and decide whether or not I had any gaps. And then look at the skills that I already have that I might not have had a formal qualification in, and see how I can go about building something along those lines as well. And then not to say, don't go and follow an interest. I have always been a bit of a basic photographer. So I started Googling photography courses as well. I guess the underlying premise of it all, though, is take up the opportunities. There are so many free courses, and not so, but out there for you to use. And it's definitely taking the time to look and understand what's going to help you. So I'm going to share my screen. Angela put a little PowerPoint together for us. Hopefully it all goes according to plan. And I would assume you're seeing the webinar staying recoveries. So the first area that Angela decided to look at, and the one that I think has worked really well for me, is understanding where our industry sits. And there's a lot of companies out there at the moment that are putting webinars together that are about helping us understand what our futures are going to look like, essentially. So you've got things like ATEC, TEQ, who we've already heard from, Tourism Australia. And a lot of their webinars are fantastic because they're free. If you register for them, you'll be able to grab the links and things if you can't sort of watch the whole thing or you happen to have missed it. So a lot of live and on-demand opportunities for you, and everything ranging from 10 minutes to an hour long. And I know that ours has gone just a little bit over an hour, so I'm going to sort of race through this a little bit. But some really great examples that have come through at the moment. So ATEC have their Road to Recovery series, and it's all about how we adapt and innovate ourselves and our businesses to move forward during this time. And they've got some really fun ones coming up. There's the Trans-Tasman Bubble, quite a big hype story for the moment, and also just what domestic tourism looks like. So it works really well with the conversations that have gone on here today. And then Leanne also mentioned that TEQ have their catch-ups on Friday. So I definitely recommend that everybody jumps in and registers for those. The other ones that we can sort of tend to look at, I'm just going to jump onto the screen, is upskilling. So another really important area to think about when you're working around what's the next step. So reflecting on your skills and strengths, do you have the gaps, and where do you go to actually then fill those in? Think about things like, what are your interests? What are your passions? Ed did speak about this as well. Where are you curious? What gets you excited? And then how much time do you have to actually commit to something? And then what are the costs involved? So a lot of us might be struggling a little bit financially. So there's quite a lot of free opportunity out there. And I guarantee you'll find something that will help you just work through a couple of different alternatives. So something to think about in terms of who's offering what. I just need to jump into my little document here. Yep. So things like UQ and TAFE Queensland, QUT, they're all offering free short courses, and particularly in areas of, I guess, where we're all passionate, so tourism. You can do things like digital literacy, social media analytics, get in and develop your leadership skills. And the best part is that you can work at through those at your own pace. I think previously Annabel actually mentioned too that there was the LinkedIn Learning. So one of the great things about that opportunity is if you're setting your profile up accurately, the recommended tutorials that you're going to get delivered are really tailored to your needs. And that's something that I've actually been looking at in the last couple of days. Then we sort of think about, there's some quite specific opportunities for people depending on the companies that you're working for. So you've got things like Review Pros, so very, very much tailored towards hoteliers. And you've got people in the hotel business working through the issues and the struggles that they're facing. So you're basically hearing from your peers, which is a great opportunity. Women in Digital offering workshops that are free. So I guarantee you there's a lot of opportunity there to understand different ways of managing your business. And then, anything from Udemy to Coursera offering free personal courses. So you can actually get, I kid you not, something like 100,000 different courses. Great for personal development, lots of business style courses, and everything in between, whether or not you just want to be a better baker or if you actually are looking to secure a new job. So I think for the most part, however, and I actually am like racing through this, so I do apologize, but you can do everything from basic courses that take 10 minutes through to diplomas. It's just about making sure that you understand what's the most important thing for you. It's really, again, understanding your skills and your strengths and being honest with yourself to go, these are my gaps, or these are the things that I've started to do in another career and I haven't really solidified that opportunity. So I'm going to go and now work towards something that I can put in front of a prospective employer to say that I actually do have this skill. It's really important to remain a little bit curious, understand your passions, be optimistic, and investigate. So the best thing to do is just start Googling. I've got a list of probably 10 different companies that are offering free courses. And as I said, they're anything from 30 minutes through to maybe a couple of hours. And I'm going to post a lot of those links on our various websites and bits and pieces for you over the course of today, because I really just do encourage everybody to think about your future and invest your time wisely and look at having an opportunity to, I guess, rest and rejuvenate, but don't sit too long because, you've sort of got a pool of people out there that Ed mentioned that are all looking for jobs and we all want to basically be on top of it and you want to put your best foot forward. So again, it's really important to think about how you take this time to upskill yourself and basically work towards a better future. I wasn't going to put up a slide with all of the links because they are literally just hundreds of URLs and they look quite horrible, Sally. So I will work out a way to get those onto the Travel Massive page and definitely make sure that people have access to a lot of information.
We will. Thank you, Stephen. That was awesome. We have run over time through no fault of your own. And I'll quickly bring back our speakers if they're still there. Yay! Yeah. There's everybody. Just a couple of questions that have come through and pop them on Facebook if you're still there and have some questions. I quite liked this one. I'm going to pop it up here from Ian. How do you explain any non-employment on LinkedIn during this time, Annabel?
A great question. And my advice is, I'm sure you're not doing nothing at the moment. So we've all talked about that there are some free courses that you can take advantage of. So potentially do that. And you can put that into your LinkedIn profile as learnings. Also, you might look at doing some volunteer work, or there may be some other activities that you've had to do during this time. people will be understanding of the situation. So it's better to have something in there and be proactive rather than to leave it blank and say, I haven't been doing anything other than watching Netflix.
Yeah, that's awesome. I quite like this one from Jean that says, how do you suggest that content creators deal with people who want to pick your brain via LinkedIn without damaging relationships?
It's very tricky, and I know a lot of people really don't like this about LinkedIn, but the reality is you can control the relationships that you're going to build on LinkedIn. So you need to think about what are the goals and why are you wanting to grow a network on LinkedIn. So if it fits with you to have some sort of engagement with people that do something similar to you, then go ahead and do it. But you can actually set the boundaries about how much you're willing to share with them, but also flip it back on them and actually ask them, what are they wanting from you? Get them to ask you specific questions, because where you think they're starting, it might be actually something totally different to what it is that they're actually after from you. So that would be my advice.
Awesome. We have run out of time, so unless there are any more questions or any questions from the panel to each other, we might wrap up. I'd just like to thank our wonderful speakers, Leanne Coddington, Ed Hewitt, Annabel Sullivan and Stephen Elvin, along with, do I bring him up? He's probably not prepared for this. Ian from Travel Massive, who's been really helpful today, alongside my Travel Massive colleagues in the background, Dennis, David, Paul and Saskia. If you'd like to see further online events like this, pop your suggestions or ideas in the comments and we'll love to read those. And really, thanks everyone and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sally.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. See you. Bye.